Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a reel that I really enjoy. It's the Daiwa Millionaire II. It's the 500M. It's a high-speed reel. This one was sent in by Tom. Tom sent me a series of reels, and well, we're working through them, and I thought this one would be interesting. The original Millionaires really were kind of almost an exact duplicate of the ambassador reels of the time, and well, they changed the design. I think they had to. I would suspect that the folks over at Boo probably got really upset when they saw almost a direct copy of them. But the Millionaires were changed, and well, we'll see which one is inside this. I'm not quite sure. Take the nut cap off and the little shield, and that exposes the handle assembly, very much like the ambassador. And well, we're going to take this reel apart completely. We're going to show you how to service it, and we're going to show you how it was made, and well, if it's the same kind of setup as the ambassador, we'll let you know that too. There's a little C-clip here that holds the gear sleeve onto the gear post. Be very careful as you remove that. They're hard to find and they fly easily. And well, while I take off these exterior pieces and parts, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. That little piece goes under the clip. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting. And well, you can determine if that's a reel that you find interesting or would like to learn more about. I work on all kinds of fishing reels. Today it's a round bait casting reel from Daiwa. Tomorrow it might be a low profile bait caster followed by an ocean trolling reel, maybe a surf or a freshwater spinning reel. I'm kind of looking over my shoulder in my shop, and well, whatever shows up I try to do the videos for most of the time if I don't have them in my library. So maybe you can learn along with me as we do these reels. Well, I've removed the star adjuster. That should enable me to remove the case now. Sometimes the whole case will come off, sometimes it's just the face that comes off. And so I like to take that star adjuster off either way. If it's the whole case that's coming off, you got to take it off eventually anyway. But sometimes you'll find that you can't get the case off with that star adjuster on. All right, here's 2, here's 3. Let's see if the whole case comes off or just yeah, the whole case is going to come off on this. I want to take the spool off at this point. That was a tight fit there. There's a bushing inside the spool, not a bearing. And well, as I tell folks, they can leave the line on and that's fine. Sometimes the line is a little bit over capacity in terms of how it was set, and that tends to trap on the way back in. So I'm going to take a rubber band and I'm going to tie down those the line so that it doesn't jam me on the way back in. Well, there's nothing really on the other side. We'll open it up to show you, but you don't really need to service much over there. And we have 3 screws that are holding this side plate on. It's easier to do this now than it is after you put the other side plate back. When you take these off, note if they're all the same screws or if they're different screws. If they're different screws, you're going to want to note where the oddball screw is, or 2 or 3, so that when you go to reinstall, you put them in the proper places. Okay. So as I mentioned, there's really nothing going on inside the case. You do just want to take this off so that you can check to make sure that the idler gear is got all of its teeth. That would cause a problem if any of the teeth were missing. You do not need to remove the springs or anything on a click mechanism, but for those of you that may be watching this video because you did and you can't figure out how they go, we'll just take a moment to show you that here. And then all I need to do is an oil on the plastic gear, an oil on the worm gear drive. We've pretty much got that set up, and we can just go back and put the cover back on. Line that up with the screw holes and put the screws back in the hole. Doesn't really matter what sequence you work on the reel. That's kind of one of preference. Today it just kind of got me to say, why don't we go over there? I know nothing's going on this side, but why not go over there and just show you what's in there. Now, of course, if your click wasn't working, if you had a noise coming from this side, if you had a skip in a line guide performance that you suspected was your idler gear, well, in all those cases, of course, you want to start over here, try and narrow down what the issues are and get them repaired. But it's up to you in terms of which way you want to do that. All right, we're going to just remove this cover here. Of course, I got that right in the wrong spot. I'm going to take my spool assembly and put that back in so that I can twirl it and move the line guide over. I want to remove the pawl cap so that I can get to service the pole. To do that, you take a screwdriver in the bottom of the cap, pull that out. And then you'll have access to the pawl. And this pawl is dirty. So what you want to do, you want to check when you get the pawl, two things. You got to get the dirt off the collar here, because that's going to back up on the pawl track. So scrape that off, and then check the points. They seem to be okay. And if they do, all you have to do is put the pawl back in. Put a little bit of drop of oil on there. Turn your spool a little bit until that pawl seats in the worm gear. You'll feel that click down just like I did there. And you can put the cap back on, using your hand strength as much as you like, because it always winds up in a little bit of an awkward place anyway. I think we're probably going to have to kind of roll with this as it is. I think it may have moved a little bit. Well, we'll adjust that once we have a side plate on. Once you install the pawl cap, come on over and take the two screws. That one was loose. Two screws off the side case. And we should be able to pull up and out, and we'll see if this one's the one that mimics the ambassador or not. We should just pull off now. And very much similar in nature, not totally. So this is probably the one that got, well, second generation, makes sense. Take a picture here. Notice you've got two springs on the yoke collar. You want to remove those right away. We have a big gear spacer or sleeve that's plastic. Underneath that we have several tension washers. And we can actually pull this whole gear stack off at the moment. This has the older style fingered anti-reverse, and it has a series of washers in the main gear. Take a picture here so that you know the sequence of it. What we want to do really is to just check to make sure that the drag washers are okay, clean them up, and get them back into service. So these are the older style leather washers, and they're kind of adhering to these metals. Generally speaking, that's not okay. You want to break that seal. And it's sealed by old grease is what's happened there. The old grease is dried and almost become a glue. Well, that renders these very ineffective in terms of being drag washers. The solution is to break them free, hopefully without breaking them. As I mentioned, they're leather. And what we want to do is we want to put some grease on these. These washers are permeable, so get grease there. Use the gloved hand to kind of rub that grease in. and that'll keep it from sticking. And we'll do that to all 3 washers. We got one more. Now I'm using a Cal's drag grease, universal drag grease. You don't have to use that. If you have fishing wheel grease, it's fine. And we have a 6 washer set here. We have 2 rounds. We have 1 eared. The round washers with the rectangular centers, they're called keyed washers. And the washers that have the center hole and the 2 studs on it, they're called eared washers. Well, before we go and put anything back together again, the reel is clean. If it wasn't clean, you would take all the pieces and parts out and make sure to clean them. But these are just, well, the reel is probably operating poorly or suboptimally because, well, there are no greases here. When you go to reset your pinion gear, and you'll notice there's a little bit of grease on the side here. Let's get that off. You're going to find ramps. Those ramps go to the inside. When you go to set your pinion gear, you'll find a slotted and a geared side. The slotted side also goes in. If the case was dirty, you would certainly want to clean it up. I'm just going to throw a little bit of penetrating oil on there. As an example, that would be a degreaser. Come on over and just use a cotton swab or something. Not a lot of, I haven't seen a ball bearing in this yet. This has got a bushing in it here as well. Okay, we can oil this. I don't use penetrating oil as a lubricant, I only use it as a degreaser. Oil all those pieces that are going to become your trip mechanism, then bring your yoke back over. We've greased the pinion gear. Now we're going to set the gear assembly on, and the finger for the anti-reverse is going to ride over this post here. And it's going to fit under this, which is going to be the backstop for it. When you are spinning the reel, it's going to stay off this trip ratchet. When you go to reverse, friction is going to pull it in to stop it. That's how your anti-reverse works. Check the main gear. Check the teeth, make sure they're clean. Again, this reel probably hasn't seen a service in a while. All the greases and oils have evaporated. So we're just going to restore the grease. I'm using an artist brush and fishing wheel grease. The fishing wheel grease I use is Penn Precision Wheel Grease. Okay, insert it. Then we alternate. We have one of the leather washers. We have the thin keyed washer that goes in the base. Another of the washers. This one's followed by the eared washer, the one that has the 2 points. You need to locate the indentation in the case to make sure that that seats properly. Then our 3rd washer goes on. And this is the other keyed washer, but it has kind of a bubble or a raised top. The raising part of the top goes up. Then we have a flat washer. And then there's 2 belled washers. They're curved. I like to put the first one facing up and the second one facing down. That's all about the sensitivity on the star adjuster. Then we have a flat washer to finish that off. And then we have our plastic cap. So that's the internal workings of this one. Just come around the other side, check here. And I don't think I've seen a ball bearing in this. I've only seen the bushings, and that's okay. All right, with that set up then, let's just reinstall the case. Oops, there's an oops. I always seem to want to forget this for some reason, but there's those 2 big springs that go in here. And it wouldn't be a very effective free spooling if you neglected those springs. Line those up to the top. Pull up on your screws so that they don't get in the way of the track. And then go over to your parts tray, or however you've organized your pieces and parts, to get the 2 screws that are going to hold that case down. I don't know why the one was loose, but it was loose. Take care of that right here. Notice that there was a pin that fits in that hole there. That's the one for the anti-reverse dog. It comes through to help you to center the case as well. Tighten these down and then check the seam. Make sure that you have a nice flush seam all the way through. This one's starting to separate a little bit, and that usually is because your trip mechanism kind of gets in the way a little bit. So push that in, and then you can close that up and trip it back. Next up then is a star adjuster. And actually at this point we can put this back on the reel. I'm going to use a little bit of grease onto the shaft. We'll line all of this up. And then we can finger tighten these to make sure that they're all in place. It's a relatively nice design to it. It's somewhat uncomplicated, which is always good. And it fishes very well. Again, I think this is pretty much still in the early stages of the Millionaires. I have some of them that are kind of my favorites, but they have a little bit different design internally. Okay, tighten those down. I did hear a little snap, so I want to make sure I go back and, yep, there you go. That one was loose when we took it off. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but something happened there. All right, let's put the star adjuster back on. Good time to tell you, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, if you want to leave those questions in the comment section, please go ahead and do that. I do try to answer those questions. And I try to answer them in the mornings. So if you're leaving a question in the evening, please just be patient. I will try to get to them in the morning. If you try to call the number on the business card, well, it's kind of hit or miss, and it's usually miss, because most of the time I'm in my shop. I'm working on, well, fishing reels and videos, and I can't disrupt the video to answer a phone. All right. That goes on. There's a tension washer that goes on. Now we have that little set washer that goes underneath the clip. Then we have the clip. If there's any part of these reels services that make me nervous, it's these little pieces of parts that can fly very easily, get lost, and are very difficult to find a replacement for. Find the groove. You should be able to pinch that in by hand strength. If you don't have that hand strength, I seem to be lacking it here. Use a little pliers. Center the pliers on the stud in the center of that clip. I'll pull that away for some reason. Hold tight because it may still fly, and then you have it centered. Only a couple of parts remain then. We have the part here that's the nut cap. Hand thread that so that you don't strip the threads on the pinion or on the gear sleeve. Tighten down on your star adjuster so that it's out of the way when you're tightening your cup. And we have our little trim piece. Or screw. And if we tighten that down, we should be done and ready for a test. Okay, what have we done? We've taken the reel apart completely. We've showed you the internal structure of the reel. We've showed you how to take it apart and service it. And now we're ready for a final test. Let's push the button in for cast control. Spin it. This is over tightened, which that tends to be once you service, because you put some grease on and generally speaking, that grease accumulates in the cap and becomes a little tight. Oh, let's put it back to spin. And now we're spinning a lot easier from cast mode. Let's trip it. Trips nice and easily. Let's make sure that our line guide is running properly. It is. And that's it. That's the service of the Daiwa Millionaire 500M. And it's relatively easy service to do, so I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to keep all of your tackle and reels and everything ready to fish. And to do that, it usually requires a maintenance schedule, usually about once a year, to do that in about 20 or 30 minutes, as you saw in this video. So I hope you've learned how to do that, and I hope you take up the practice. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy the art of reel repair. Again, I ask you to subscribe if you're enjoying this, and watch more. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for all it is that you do to keep us safe. I truly appreciate everything you do. To everyone, please take care. Have a great day. Go out on the water. Bring a friend. Have a great day fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.